Sand is one of the bastard daughters of Prince Oberyn Martell, and thus she is counted as a member of the infamous Sand Snakes. While Tyene does make it into Game of Thrones, the TV adaptation of A Song of Ice and Fire, much like the other members of the Sand Snakes, she is a drastically different character, not just in her physical appearance, but also her actual characteristics and who she is as a person, as well as large parts of her backstory being utterly different from her book counterpart. So while Tyene is in Game of Thrones, it is really in name only, given how different she is from the books. That's why I consider her to be among missing characters. Out of the 3 Sand Snakes that did make it into Game of Thrones, while all 3 were very different from the books, Tyene is perhaps the most distinctly different, and I would argue the worst adapted of all 3, which is quite remarkable given how poorly the Dornish plotline as a whole was received by fans, given how little of it actually made it from the book to the screen. Tyene's father was Oberyn Martell, and her mother an unknown septa, with Tyene being born in 277 AC, making her around the age of 23 by a dance with dragons. Tyene is described as fair, with golden hair and deep blue eyes. Dimples bloom in her cheeks, and she has a gentle, sweet voice. She stands out amongst her sisters, given how unremarkably Dornish she appears, seemingly having taken after her mother over her father. Despite her innocent and pious persona, Tyene is regarded as treacherous. It is said that her soft, pale hands are as deadly as her sister's Obara's callous ones, as she shares her father, Oberyn's knowledge of poison, her chosen weapon, rather than a blade. Tyene owns a clinging gown of pale blue, with sleeves of Mirish lace, as well as a cream and gold gown with long lace sleeves. Prince Doran Martell's personal guard, Arianne, thinks the following of Tyene when thinking of her. Lady Tyene's voice was gentle, and she looked as sweet as summer strawberries. Her mother had been a septa, and Tyene had an air of almost otherworldly innocence about her. When Tyene was still a babe in the cradle, her mother, a septa, read to her from the 7-pointed star. Tyene spent her youth at the Water Gardens. How she came into her father's care is not known, but what we do know is that Tyene spent her youth in the Water Gardens with her cousin, Princess Arianne Martell, with the 2 growing as close as sisters, learning to read, ride and dance together. They have shared meals, jewellery, beds, and one time a flagon of wine stolen by Arianne. The 2 would have lost their maidenhood together to Andry Dalt, but is said he was premature in the encounter. Arianne once crossed the Mander with 3 of the Sand Snakes to visit Tyene's mother, which suggests that her mother came from somewhere in the Reach, perhaps in the vicinity of Old Town, given the link between the Old Town and the Faith. Some have speculated that given Tyene's notable blonde hair and fair skin, her mother could have been a member of House Hightower, given how many of their number have become septas, septons and maesters. Tyene and Arianne once fled Sunspear to try and marry Arianne to Willis Tyrell at Highgarden, but they were caught by Tyene's father, Oberyn Martell, when they reached Vaith. Oberyn once brought Tyene with Arianne and Tyene Sand to Shandy Stone, where he showed Tyene how to milk vipers for their venom. Doran Martell, Prince of Dorne, kept a marriage pact hidden from Arianne because he feared his daughter would have not kept it a secret from Tyene, who would have in turn informed her sisters, Obara and Nymeria, and then word of it would soon be spread around the whole of Dorne. After the death of her father at the hands of Sir Gregor Clegane while defending Tyrion Lannister during a trial by combat in King's Landing, Tyene waits for Doran Martell, Prince of Dorne, her uncle, in the throne room of Sunspear to demand vengeance, while working on an embroidery of Oberyn, armoured in red atop a sand steed. Her elder sister Nymeria Sand wants Tyene to aid her in assassinating Lord Tywin Lannister, Queen Regent Cersei Lannister, Sir Jaime Lannister, and King Tommen I Baratheon. Tyene instead wants to crown Tommen's sister, Princess Marcella Baratheon, as queen, using the pretext of Dornish inheritance law, and if the Lannisters and Tyrells invade Dorne, they would be slain in the Dornish mountains and sands. Doran said grudgingly that he would think about it, though Tyene is angered, claiming he thinks too much, like her father said, and accused him of cowardice. She then apologises and asks for his blessing after he lays his hand on her head. Maester Calotte searches for scratches and puncture marks on Doran's hand, demonstrating a fear of her knowledge of poisons. Doran later has Arianne detain Tyene and her sisters as a gesture of goodwill towards the Lannisters in King's Landing, with Tyene, Nymeria and Oberyn detained in the Spear Tower of Sunspear, as is Princess Arianne Martell after her own plot to crown Myrcella is foiled. Tyene, her sisters and Arianne are later released from their cells in the Spear Tower and are present at the feast when Sir Balon Swan presents Gregor Clegane's skull to Doran. She refuses to drink when Ricassio raises a toast to King Tommen. When her sisters question whether the skull is in fact that of her father's killer, Tyene says the following to try and quell their fears. Sisters, truly, I know the poison father used. If the spear so much as broke the mountain skin, Clegane is dead. I do not care how big he was. Doubt your little sister if you like, but never doubt our sire. This truly shows how deep her knowledge of poison goes, and how much faith she has in her father, that he got the job done, despite his death. Later, when Doran tasks Nymeria with returning Myrcella to King's Landing and joining the small council in her father's place, Tyene is ordered to accompany her, disguised as a septa, to gain the confidence of the High Sparrow, who is acting as the High Septon in King's Landing. The show version of Tyene seems to be a combination of Tyene and some elements of her younger sister, Ellia, with the show version being the daughter of Oberyn's paramour, Ellaria. Thus why in the show, Tyene looks much more Dornish than in the books. Elements of Ellia's backstory are also given to Tyene. Given Tyene's mother is not a septa in the show, her character has much less influence from the faith, which in turn drastically changes her personality. The lack of Arianne Martell in the show also means the way in which the plot to crown Myrcella plays out is very different altogether. Tyene does retain the poisoner aspect of her book character. The Sand Snakes were reduced to 3 purely due to time, and an attempt to streamline the Dornish storyline. However, the way in which it was handled was still poor. The general changes the showrunners made to the Dornish plotline overall also drastically changed the role of the Sand Snakes, and thus Tyene in the show and the context of their actions is very different altogether. For example, I believe in no way would the book version of her character ever willingly take part in a plot to kill Myrcella, and then later on, Doran. I've been thinking for a long time, while making these Ironborn and Dornish missing character videos, which storyline was handled the worst, and it's characters like Tyene Sand in the show that sometimes make me believe it is in fact the Dornish plotline.